quirky, it's weird, it's funny, and it's just so Nintendo. It's the second game in the Mother's series, but we know it here in the States as EarthBound. Released 20 years ago on the Super Nintendo, it introduced us to the character Ness, and has since become a cult classic. Even though the game initially sold very poorly here, the game saw revived interest when Ness became a playable character in the first of the Super Smash Bros. Games. Since then, EarthBound has had a bit of a resurgence, having been re-released on the Game Boy Advance and the Wii U Virtual Console. We take a look at this humorous title and see how it holds up 2 decades later, right here on Downloadable Content. Content. I'm Brian, and with me we have Captain N over here. Doug is back for another Nintendo episode.
Oh man, I wish I had like the controller belt, like just pause things. That'd be so handy.
Mr. Nestor over here. We are talking EarthBound on this episode, another in our set of anniversary episodes. We've had Silent Hill, we've had Elder Scrolls, and now we're at EarthBound.
Yeah, oh man, when I saw you were doing this episode, I was jumping to come on this because I have just such a fondness for this game. And like, I don't know, it's so different. It's such a departure from what we think of for RPGs, like especially in the Super Nintendo era.
Definitely, and you know, as I started mentioning in the intro, I had not even heard of EarthBound until Super Smash Bros. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when a lot of us, I mean, EarthBound gained a cult following on the Super Nintendo, but I think more of us was introduced to EarthBound via Ness's appearance on Smash Bros. And because many of us were probably like, where the hell is this character from?
Yeah, I was lucky enough that I had this as a kid. I still have my old cartridge and everything. And I know part of the reason I got this game was my mom bought it for me because it was one of those Super Nintendo games that came in oversized boxes. Like it was, like 2 or 3 times the size of a normal Super Nintendo game box because it had something extra in it. In this case it came with the player's guide. But the other one, that same thing is Super Bomberman, because it came with the multi-tap. But it was kind of that on a whim. It's like, hey, this is something different, and it's in a big box. It must be a big deal, and that's why we got it. And this is one of those Super Nintendo games that I go back to time and again, and just it's been a year, time to go play EarthBound again. Because it does hold up well. It's it's a typical RPG, but in terms of just type of game, but at the same time it's not like a fantasy setting. It's basically they say I think it's just 1990X, so it's set in the 1990s, and that's about all you need for setting. And you just start going around and fighting aliens with a baseball bat.
Basically, yes. I mean, just some background information to get us going here. This game was released August 27th, 1994 in Japan. It was almost a year later before it came to the US, June 5th of 1995. However, as I mentioned, this is the second game in the Mother series. Mother 1 and 3. I don't think have made it over here.
No, even though they brought the main character from Mother 3 into Smash Brothers as well, Lucas.
Yep.
Yeah, and this remains the only one I've ever played. And I know there's been like translation ROMs and everything like that, but it just never came through, and I was always kind of curious about that.
This was developed by Ape and Hal. Hal, I'm familiar with Kirby. They do the Kirby games. So, as this game now, 20 years later, and I started playing this game in preparation for this particular episode because, as mentioned, probably many of us who haven't played EarthBound or were unfamiliar with it, we saw the character of Ness in the original Super Smash Bros. For N64, and I'm sure many of us, myself included, were like, what the hell game is this guy from? We know where Luigi's from, Mario, Donkey Kong, Link, the big, huge franchises. We know where all of them come from, but who the fuck is this little kid with a bat and screaming, PK Fire? What the hell is this? And you find out he's from a game called EarthBound. Who the hell is this? And, one of the items in Smash Brothers is Mr. Saturn, and...
Yep. Did you at least, when you did your playthrough, you at least got to Saturn Valley, I hope?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did. So, but, one of the first things I noticed immediately, right off the bat in this game, is that, it's so Nintendo. It's so Nintendo. I mean, the game intentionally the game intentionally does not take itself seriously. It's a parody. It's kind of making fun of RPGs.
Absolutely.
While in itself being an RPG.
Yep. It's that vein of you laugh hardest when you laugh at yourself. And, I mean, there's just so many times where it just reminds you that this game is supposed to be silly. I mean, you look at the names of some of the enemies. Like, you fight the unassuming local guy, the new age retro hippie.
Yep.
What are some of the other ones? Like the mouse playing rough.
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And it's...
And also funny is the fact that the whole game, it's Japan trolling American customs. It's the whole. This is what Japan thinks of American culture.
Yep.
It's hilarious.
Oh, but I mean, this. I mean, you mentioned it's how it's silly and everything, and that's the thing I always think about is when I think about EarthBound is it was the first game to really kind of make me laugh out loud at how, when it was supposed to be funny, like its script and everything like that. It's the first time a game really has just made me laugh so much at all the craziness with it, and just how silly it's supposed to be. I mean, like, we mentioned Mr. Saturn and their wonderful broken way of talking that has its own font and things like that. And it was just one of those things that so often I look at it and there are still things that just crack me up. It's like, I know the joke is coming, I know I'm going to see it, but I'm still going to laugh when I see that, weird enemy or something like that.
One of the things I also noticed and that made me laugh is the fact that you buy weapons in a drugstore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna let me increase my. I want to make my baseball bat stronger. Because yes, I'm just gonna go pop down to the local CVS and upgrade my.
Yep. Unless it was guns, you had to go. You usually find that in like a back alley behind the drugstore.
Even funnier.
Yeah. One of the other things that always just stands out to me about this game is it has a surprisingly memorable soundtrack. Like, you don't think about it when you're playing, but a lot of the songs just kind of get stuck in your head later on. The one that I always, one of my favorite ones is, you have the Mario Blues Brothers, aka the Runaway Five, and whenever the 2 times you get them free, they start playing this song, and the official soundtrack name is "The Runaway Five Have Left the Building," and it is just such an upbeat, catchy song, and it's one of those like whenever I'm like going on a road trip or like about to like go to a convention or just hitting the road for some sort of adventure, I have to play that on my iPod just to get the mood going. And but there's so many other little parts that are just fun like that.
And a lot of the music has found its way into remixes onto Super Smash Brothers, for example. Um, so the moment I realized this game was going to be unlike most RPGs I've played was there was a throwaway line where somebody, this is right near the beginning of the game, where, you know, someone's taking a picture of you, and the line is, "Say Fuzzy Pickles!" And I'm just like, what?
And it becomes a running joke.
What?
Yep. Oh, the photographer.
Fuzzy Pickles!
Yep. See, that's how I know you haven't finished it, because by the end of that game, you are sick of him. Because he keeps showing up all these times, and you're like, oh, I just want to keep going.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not done with the game, but Fuzzy Pickles? And
Yep.
I'm like, yep, this is Nintendo. This is Nintendo. And I was playing through again early on. I'm in one it, and I walk into like a food, like a burger bar or something like that, and I look at how much the food prices are, and I'm like, wow, this game came out in '95. I pay this much now when I go to Yankee Stadium or Fenway or SPAC for a $15 for a cheeseburger.
Oh. Yeah.
Although Ness is lucky. Every time he calls his dad pops money into his bank account. I'm like, oh, I wish I had that.
Oh, you're fighting? Oh, okay. Here's some more money.
Yeah. Like, where the hell do you accumulate all this wealth, Dad?
Well, he's always working. You never see the dad. That's why.
You never see him. It's the typical Japan trope of the father that works, that never sees his kid, always at the office.
So speaking of money, you can actually buy the house for sale in One It, and that's just another great little bit that once you get there, because once you buy it, you go inside and there's no back wall, and there's like holes in the floor and everything. It's you know, the game trolling you. It's like it's one of those, I know this was going to be too good to be true, but I did it anyway. And like if you check the dresser, you can find you can start reading a comic book that's in there. It's just so many silly things. But I mean, it does have kind of a cool story. I mean, it's a very basic, you know, you're the destined one to, you know, defeat the evil aliens, you know, and there's, you know, 3 other people that'll join you, and it's kind of typical there, but that's not why you play it. Like, you don't play it for that story. It just gives you kind of neat little glimmers of that. This is an example of you're here to have fun.
Yeah, if you're looking for incredibly serious story and gameplay, probably not the game for you.
Mm-hmm. Did you get and then just when you think it's gonna get stale too, it throws something else at you too to keep it interesting. Like, you know, you get to Foreside, and then you go into kind of the bizarre world of Moonside, where you have to be careful. You have to remind yourself that, you know, everything's backwards. So if you mean yes, you have to say no, and vice versa, which gets really frustrating sometimes if you forget it. Like, no, wait, I mean, yes, no.
Wait, I'd like to change my answer.
Yeah.
It was like early in the game. Now, just to remind you people out there, if you haven't played this game, spoiler alert, there might be some story spoilers here. I mean, I already know what happens in the game because I've had to do research. So, but you have this thing at the beginning of the game where you have I come from the Buzz Buzz. That's his name. He comes in telling you about this monster named Gygus, and you have to stop him in the present because he's too powerful in the future. And then after all this monologuing and important exposition, Ness comes home with Buzz Buzz. The mother thinks it's a beetle and kills him.
No, it's Pokey's mother.
Oh, it's Pokey's mother? I thought it was Ness's mother. Okay.
No, it's Pokey's mother.
Oh, it's a bug! Crunch.
Yeah.
I'm like...
In case you didn't hate the Minch family enough already.
I'm like, well, that was anticlimactic and sad at the same time. But, and of course, it was in most games, the police are useless in It.
Until they come after you.
And then it becomes Grand Theft Auto. Wait, I'm trying to save the world. No.
Yeah.
And, Ness has to then go out and find the sanctuaries and, build up strength to combat the great evil. Along the way, you learn abilities. So, you have your classic RPG elements, but along the ride, it's just total silliness. Now, a very interesting notes about, obviously this game came out in Japan, so there's going to be a lot of things in the game that probably could not get past the censor in North America. According to Wikipedia, the game was retitled EarthBound. Its original name is Mother 2. It had to be renamed EarthBound so as to not... so that Nintendo wouldn't pull a square with its Final Fantasy numbering. So, apparently, the English localization of EarthBound took 4 months to complete. The two people who worked on the translation, it was one of those translators that came up with Say Fuzzy Pickles.
That's excellent.
Dan Osen, who was one of the people who localized the game, who decided to throw that gem in there.
I need to buy that man a beer.
He was given basically creative freedom to make the English script as weird as he wanted, but to also remain pretty much somewhat true to the original translation.
Yeah, that's the thing, is translation is more art than science. So there's a lot of things. You mentioned, some things that, like, the censors, like, wouldn't fly over here that would over Japan. I remember, I think it's one of the sharks. In one, like, early on, they can't say, tell the character, "Oh, go to hell." So he says, "Don't go to heaven," and things like that.
Yeah, and this is true of many games in the 80s and 90s where you get some of the most memorable video game lines due to either translation errors or puns, like, you Spoony Bard from Final Fantasy IV, I Feel Asleep, or I Am Error. So, the people who were translating the game, one of the other translators, his name is Marcus Lindblom, he said that contextualizing an outsider's view of the U.S. for American players was the most difficult part of the project, and so he had to rewrite jokes and puns in order that they could make sense to American audiences. So there are cultural references to Bugs Bunny, Benny Hill, and This Is Spinal Tap.
Yeah. Oh.
And of course they had to remove intellectual property stuff like similarities to Coca-Cola, the Red Cross. Some of the graphics had to be changed to comply with Nintendo of America's policies standard. All references to alcohol were replaced with coffee. Most religious references were removed. The happiest blue cultists that appear in the game were changed so that they less resembled KKK members.
Yeah. That is like one costume I'd love to, like, get a group of people to do at like PAX or something. is do the cultists. Just because it would be one of those ones that you see a bunch of them, and people that have played the game will do that double take and realize what you're doing.
The happiest.
Yes. Led by Mr. Carpainter.
And, you know, I'm looking at the images right now, and I'm like, yeah, I could see why they had to change the graphic a little.
Yeah.
Oops.
You mentioned coffee, change from alcohol. Like that once again, going back to Saturn Valley, like that was one of the things I always thought was neat. Is not once but twice, it makes you stop and listen to see a scrolling text and listen to some music, and think about the journey. Like it actually makes you stop and think about everything that you've done so far. Which in so many other games are like keep going, keep going, keep going. This is stop and think about it, have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
The first time after you beat Belch, and then later on once you get the attend to the village to overcome their shyness and are willing to talk to you.
One thing I noticed as well. I mean, this game does not use random encounters, which
nope.
You see every enemy, and sometimes they'll give chase and attack you.
And then once you get power into full enough, they start running away. And if you're also powerful enough, it'll even skip the battle for you. It'll just go straight to the experience, which was really helpful if you're trying to level up or something. I mean, I never had to do too much grinding. I do a little bit early on and won it just to kind of get ahead of the curve, and from then on, I'm usually pretty good.
Yeah, that's typical, though, with most of the older RPGs, is that you want to do a little level grinding at the beginning because, especially with games like the older Dragon Quest games, it's like once you leave that first, intro area, suddenly it's like, oh shit, difficulty's just ramped itself up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true of many of the older RPGs. So, of course, we have our characters. We have Jeff, we have Paula, we have Pooh.
I hated that name. I always name him something different. Like
you don't like the name Pooh?
It just seems weird.
We're talking about a game that is intentionally weird, and you think the name Pooh is weird?
I didn't say it like I don't know. It's I just can't say it with a straight face. How's that?
Can you even play this game with a straight face?
Touche. But they had and once again, the thing that was neat is they really made every character have kind of their own specialty. Like Ness was a lot more physical attacks and his one psi power, and then Paul is the one with primarily psychic power attacks. Jeff's obviously is like the technician and gets like all the heavy duty weapons, and once again crazy items, bottle rockets to use for weapons. And then Pooh has some pretty powerful stuff, but he doesn't get it till later on. And what's interesting with him is how he has only one equipable item for each category. Like I think it's like weapon, head, body, and arms. And so it's always the something of kings. And his weapon is the Sword of Kings, which only one enemy carries, and that enemy is only in one dungeon. And it's a random chance if you'll get it. And of course, after you beat the boss in that dungeon, all enemies stop spawning. So it is a super limited chance to get the Sword of Kings. I must have played EarthBound all the way through at least 8 times, and I've never gotten this item. It's so frustrating.
I suppose that in one of your playthroughs, you'll eventually get it, and you're going to announce it to the entire world on your Facebook, and your life will be complete, and you will have achieved enlightenment at that point.
Yeah. I've heard some people say that some versions there was a glitch, but I still don't believe that. I think I'm just really that unlucky.
Well, I mean, I don't. I'm not a fan of side quests or quests that are reliant on random item drops anyway. So it's
Oh, it's so frustrating. And it's one of the few things that really can bother me about that game. And I've just kind of gotten to that point where it's like I don't even try anymore because I don't know, it detracts from my enjoyment of the game. I'd rather go back outside, from the Stonehenge lair. Yes, that's where you get this, and go fight more cavemen because why not?
sure, go right ahead.
Yeah. Um.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who wanted to take a bat to the Minch family.
Oh no, they make you hate them so much. I mean,
Like,
the
oh,
the, the,
we're so rich, and oh,
the yeah.
can you move out so we could? They are the snooty stuck up people NPCs of the game. It's just like, oh, you odious wealthy people, you remind me of Republicans. Ness, you have a bat, use it.
Mhm.
But no, well, we don't.
Yeah.
The game has to maintain its kids to adults rating, or E, forever.
Yeah. Did you ever, some of the things like you get the receiver phone so people can call you, but you can't make outgoing calls. As one of the items. Did you ever get to the point where the game actually calls you while you're walking around saying, "Hey, you should take a break"? Not like when you do it like at a hotel, like just out in the field somewhere.
Yes.
Which was it's
And that's when I realized, so that's where the Wii gets it from. Because if I'm playing long stretches of games on the Wii, like when I'll switch games, it'll come up. Why don't you take a break? I'll be like, no, mother,
no mother,
no, mommy,
no mother. No, considering the name, what's the Japanese game we're
Yeah.
talking about?
No, mom, I'm not taking a break. I don't live with you anymore. I do not need to stop playing only after an hour. I'm almost 30. Leave me alone.
Yeah,
I don't know. Are all of the Mother games related to each other? Are they,
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Once upon a time, and once again, you getting me talk about Nintendo fanboy. There was I think it got canceled in production. There was going to be a Nintendo 64 game that just kind of was vaporware at some point. But I remember being so looking forward to that game.
Well, I'm looking it up now. EarthBound 64. Yeah, it was canceled. It was suffered numerous delays due to the N64 DD's failure. And yeah,
that beast.
and the designer's inexperience with the console's 3D technology.
Mm.
So it ultimately became Mother 3, but used a 2D art style.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was supposed to be used the N64 DD, and then Nintendo was like, "Well, what do we do? We don't know what we're doing." So that ended up, getting.
Wow. Mother 3 was only released in 2006? I didn't realize it was that recent.
Yeah, this is one of those franchises that's kind of slow going.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of games, but again, it's games like this where we see the clear distinction between Japanese gamers and American gamers.
Mm-hmm.
Because this came out in Japan, and they loved it. It got incredibly favorable reviews in Japan, and then it came out here and did so poorly. initially, because largely we didn't know what the fuck to make of it. Because
Yeah.
cause Japan, they love their quirky, their weird games like that. We don't, and still don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a game that makes you think, not because it's like deep and philosophical, but it makes you think about what they're doing differently.
It sold less than 150,000 copies in the United States when it initially came out. Kotaku described EarthBound's release as a dud and blamed the low sales on a bizarre marketing campaign and graphics that were cartoonish beyond the average taste of players. Also, the game was released at a time when RPGs were not popular in the United States. Visual taste in RPGs was closer to Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI.
I'm going to call bullshit on a couple of that because
Go ahead.
Because honestly, to say that this looks cartoony compared to Chrono Trigger and stuff, it's the Super Nintendo era. It's different art style, but it's not like people are saying, "Oh, this game's ugly" and stuff. I think it was just like style in terms of like story and like genre, because it is a little bit of parody and stuff. Sure, but the art style just seems like a weird thing, and I think like I mentioned that it came in that gigantic box, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if that scared some people away because it's like, oh, it's this expensive thing, and I think even though it was the same price as a regular Super Nintendo game, and I mean you look at as much as I like like Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI, and stuff, you can't say that those don't look kind of cartoony. I mean, it's the limits of the the 16-bit.
Oh, that's
engine.
I certainly agree, but in terms of American tastes in RPGs at the time, games with a graphical style like a Final Fantasy VI or what we were used to.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas EarthBound, completely different. I mean, we're used to random encounters and the top-down sort of thing, and then separate screens for battle and things like that. EarthBound, it was kind of pretty much seamless almost.
Yeah, and I think it's not so much that it's not that they're it's a bad style; it's a different style.
Yeah, it's different, and we were put off by it.
Yeah, and let's face it, gamers get scared when something's different unless it's very different, and they can this was close to the RPG style because it's an RPG making fun of its own genre, so that's too weird. So if you're going to be different, you have to be really different for gamers. To throw out a kind of a weird example, Portal.
Yep.
Because Portal was so different from what anybody had ever seen before. I mean, yes, it's technically a first-person shooter, but you're not it's not run and go kill people. It's figure out puzzles. So that just changed everyone's perspective. So it's that summation is, I guess, just a little too weird to me. I mean, I get where they're coming from, but it almost feels like it's like, did you actually try this game when it came out? When they make this assessment, because I don't remember anybody who ever played it actually playing it saying, "Oh, this looks weird" or anything like this, or "Oh, it's bad." Anybody I knew who got this game was like, "This game's really fun. It's silly. It says Fuzzy Pickles."
Yeah, it says Fuzzy Pickles. Also, I think one more point to add to that was also this game came out in the United States in June of 1995. 3 months later, the PlayStation 1 would also be released in the United States. So I think there was a lot of hype leading up to that, which also may have been further diverting attention away because PlayStation 1 was on the horizon, and we would have already seen what the system could do in terms of graphics. And we American gamers love our shiny.
Yep.
We love our graphics, many times to the detriment of a game's gameplay or story, and so we also had that on the horizon as well.
Yeah. And I'd love to know the true kind of nature behind it, like what really happened, because you can only really speculate.
Yeah, I mean now it's considered a cult classic and people love it. So I mean, it also shows that we really video game reviewers, and in hindsight we really have no idea what the fuck we're talking about anyway. So
yeah. But I mean, once again, just kind of bringing it back to it, there's so many times that it just kind of really rewards you for having fun with this game, like all the silliness of it. And at one point, we talk about the receiver phone and how you get random phone calls sometimes, and sometimes that's the way to keep the plot moving. But I remember, at one point, Jeff's roommate Tony was like, "Hey, I'm doing a research paper for school. Can I have your name?" "Yes, you, the one with the controller in your hands." It actually addresses the player and asks you for your name, which of course comes back in the final battle. It actually uses, so it has your name, whatever you put for your real name, you use that in the final battle. So, which is so much fun because, the Paul has that pray option, which is useless, like never really works the way you want it to in the actual regular game. But when you get to the final form of Gygas, you do some damage, but then you just have her pray, I think it's 9 times, and it's the typical, here's all the people we helped along the way or met along the way. They finally they had a feeling that they should start praying too. And then the last one is the player it's like, Doug started praying. Wait, I did? And that's how you kind of do the deal the final blow, which is a neat little way to kind of lean on the fourth wall.
Love and peace.
Yep. I always had so much fun playing this game when it asks for your favorite things and stuff.
What do you right at the beginning? Do you like what's your favorite steak?
Yeah, and so I've had I know over the years I've had different things. I'm like when I was like my second playthrough, now that I knew what it was, it would be like, favorite food. I know what'll be funny. Beer. So it's like, when you get homesick, Ness started thinking about beer and started craving it, or you visit your home. I understand. Have some beer and go to bed. or things like that. And of course, what else have I done? Just whatever the favorite power. Your favorite thing becomes the Ness's power, and it's like, his favorite thing is a Gundam.
All right. Hey. Have some Gundam and go to bed. Yes.
No, not for food, but that's even better.
Have some Gundam and then go to bed.
Yeah, and that just got me thinking about one of the funniest. They had some really crazy status ailments in this game. You could get diamondized, turned into a diamond.
Well, it's
you
like
get the
Final Fantasy. You get turned into a frog or whatever.
Yeah, you get the mushroom stuck on your head, which makes it impossible to walk, and you sell it to somebody to get rid of it. What are some of the other ones? But the one I always thought about, I mentioned was your character, the main character, could get homesick, and the only way to cure it was to call home.
There you go.
What? Oh, there's some other good ones, but you could get possessed, and which was funny because like the ghost would like do annoying stuff to you, but it could still take damage from other enemies' attacks. So you could either have it, cured using like a healer or whatever, or if just an enemy did enough damage to it, it would kill the ghost doing the possession. Once again, it's just this ridiculous departure from things that makes it so crazy.
And it is on that note where we're going to break, because we've now gone quite long enough on the first half. So on the second half, we'll continue talking about EarthBound and how it has held up for these past 20 years. So Captain N and I will take a short break, go down and play, look at some pixels or whatever, and maybe buy a gun in a back alley of a drugstore somewhere. So you'll have some music. We'll be back. Welcome back to Downloadable Content, still talking about EarthBound, and Doug went out and bought a jar of fuzzy pickles.
Wait, does that mean I bought film?
If you want, or you could have bought some genuinely fuzzy pickles. That's what I'm gonna do now in when I take a photo class. Oh, so what kind of film are you shooting? Oh, this isn't film. These are fuzzy pickles. I'm shooting with 400 speed fuzzy pickles.
Here's what you do: is next year at PAX, next time you see like some people you're taking a picture of, like some cosplayers or something, have them pose and you tell them to say fuzzy pickles. See how they get it.
Keep a running tally of who gets it. I'll definitely sure to do that to you if you happen to go to PAX next year.
Oh man.
So we press on. Now we pretty much closed the first half talking about some of the negative reaction it got in the United States. However, there were some positives. Despite the fact that it was poorly received here, there were some definite positives. Universally, it was praised for the absurdity that we've been mentioning all throughout. I mean, the game is absurd. It is silly. It's hilarious, and it's nice to play a game on occasion that doesn't take itself altogether seriously. Sometimes you just need a break from,
It's a breather.
It is, and the most lauded elements of EarthBound, at least in American audiences' eyes, were its comedic, I'm quoting here, comedic but albeit confusing depictions of Western culture, ranging from trips in a yellow submarine to fighting a diamond dog, both of which are nods to British music. This game is described by Gamasutra as a, quote, warped, confused tribute to American culture designed by people who've only experienced the country through books and movies. Among the ranks of absurd enemies in the game, Ness must face down new age retro hippies, pogo punks, extra cranky ladies, and big piles of puke.
Yep. I would love to go like on GameFAQs or something and look up like an enemy list and just scroll through all the enemy names, because it's, once again, just the translation staff must have had so much fun coming up with these names.
Yeah, and the thing is, how many of those are translations, or how many of those are interjected?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the list. There is like anything else, there is a special wiki for EarthBound. And I'm looking at the list of enemies like Carefree Bomb, Crazed Sign, Manly Fish.
I think there's also Manly Fish's brother.
Yep, there's Manly Fish's brother. Tough Guy. Mostly Bad Fly.
As opposed to the no good fly. Yeah,
Enraged Fireplug. Even Slimier Little Pile.
I'm trying to think of some of those.
No Good Fly. Unassuming Local Guy.
That's always one of my favorites. Yeah.
Soul-consuming flame.
There's a worthless protoplasm somewhere, which I think might be a Ren and Stimpy reference.
It could be. It could. Overzealous cop. There's.
Yep.
French Kiss of Death. So it's they're all over the place. Such.
I got to throw in one of more of my favorites.
Okay.
The Territorial Oak.
The Tough Mobile Sprout.
Yeah, the list goes on.
Oh yeah, it's again. I'm wondering how many of this was actual translation, and how much of it were just the English localizers just having fun. But some of the it has definitely gotten more popular and is now much more seen with fondness 2 decades later. We cannot ignore the fact that this game got a nice jolt in the arm from Smash Brothers.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of a testament to the fact that it that people do still realize that this is actually a worthwhile game. Because they wanted to bring it back and kind of bring it some more attention. So,
when Ness was introduced as a playable character in the original Smash Brothers, he has become now a mainstay of the Super Smash Brothers series, and the demand for the game increased to the point where Nintendo re-released it on the Wii U Virtual Console.
Yeah. You said it came out on Game Boy Advance too?
It did, Japan only.
Oh.
Japan.
Yeah,
I looked at that. I looked at that just during the break. It came out in Japan only on Game Boy Advance, June 20th, 2003.
yeah. I'm glad to see it's gotten a virtual console release, but I'd love to see it get some more stuff and like give it a new physical release or something just to try and push it out a little more.
Well, I mean, because of how poorly it did in the United States, that prompted Nintendo to basically say, "Okay, that was a miserable failure. We're not going to do anything with this again." In
Yeah,
the States.
but it's amazing though. You know, we talk about the cult following. To look it up on like eBay and see how much copies go for now. Like, people are happy of it with wow. Like I'm just looking right now. There's one right now, like towards the top of the list. Still has 6 days left, and it's already up to $100, and that's just the cartridge. And it's crazy. I mean, people who know this game know what it's about and really do, enjoy it. And it's like I said, it's a shame that it flopped because it is so worthwhile.
I mean, Nintendo itself, knows that the fandom is there. We do have not only, Ness is in Super Smash Brothers. You have a couple of boards from EarthBound. You have 1 and 4 side in as playable levels.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas, another character. Mr. Saturn and Jeff appear as an assist trophy, I believe, in Brawl. And Mother 3 had, even though it never came out here, it got a fan translation.
Yep. Because people, heard there was enough of a sequel. They're like, we gotta get our hands on this.
And it was actually that the work that went into the fan translation of Mother 3 that prompted the Nintendo president Iwata. He said he credited the community response on their online Miiverse social platform as leading to EarthBound's eventual release on the Virtual Console. So, Nintendo is aware of the fan following for EarthBound. I don't know, why they haven't progressed much further with that. Obviously you have enough people who are basically going, shut up and take my money, give us the damn game. But, we'll see.
Yeah. I think the Virtual Console is at least a step in the right direction. I don't know. It would be hard to justify a physical copy, but I like I said, I like to dream. But going back to we were talking about stuff from PAX East, and I mentioned the webcomic Magical Game Time, Zach Garman stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He references EarthBound a lot in some of his things, and it's funny because it's a very silly, meant to be just fun game, but he sneaks in a little bit of the kind of a deeper meaning to it, and like I'm failing out words at the moment. Just kind of puts it on a new level. I'm gonna try and look up one comic he did that kind of captures both of things. Oh, this is gonna bug me now if I can't find it.
That's okay. This is why we have the internet.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's the 4 characters. They're looking outside of a house, looking at like an army of the Starmen, and it's like they have super strength, they have deadly lasers. What do we have? A frying pan, a yo-yo, 2 cans of soda, and some fireworks.
And
well, I guess we better get to work.
And a burger.
Yeah. Oh.
But yes, the Starmen, which we haven't mentioned at all in this episode. They're kind of important.
Yeah, that's it's one of the icons of the series is that design of them, and I've seen people that have made like polo shirts with like the little insignia they have on their chest, and it's a great little thing of one of those. If you don't know what it is, you're just like, whatever. If you get the reference, you're like, hey, that's pretty awesome.
It's like, all right, hey.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many different. Yeah, there's a bunch of different versions of the Starman too. Like, the Starman Junior, Starman Deluxe, Ghost of Starman. Once again, just having fun with the names.
Ghost Starman 2, Electric Boogaloo. And so on and so forth. This particular game, and now in hindsight, because hindsight is always a beautiful thing. Now, people who were panning this game 20 years ago are now the same people are like, oh, this is just one of the greatest games you should ever play. This is a game you need to play before you die. And I'm like, where were you 20 years ago?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, jerks. It's like, what the buttery fuck is this?
And like I said, I kind of wonder how much of it was the oversized box with the player's guide, and people just thinking, it's just a gimmick. Versus actually, sitting down to play the game and not just saying, they're trying to make you buy it. So,
well, be that as it may, 20 years later, we have all this praise for it. And as I was playing through the game, one of my thoughts was, if this game was done today as an indie game, I think it would do really well.
Oh, it would do spectacularly.
I think if this game was made now and put out on Steam or whatever, it would fly, because we take a look at the games that are selling on Steam currently, and there's a huge market for this sort of stuff.
Yeah, because and that's kind of the difference is, whereas when it came out it was parody and satire, now it would be nostalgia.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of the difference.
I think that's huge, actually. So, I mean, maybe EarthBound was just 20 years ahead of its time.
Maybe. But, I mean, like I said, it's one of those games that you go back to because it just kind of rejuvenates you a little. And it gives you a breather from everything being super serious, dark foreboding, everything's awful, to just say Fuzzy Pickles.
Say Fuzzy.
It's in. You talk about kind of the Japanese, kind of influence on this. I'll put on my anime nerd hat for a moment and talk about when they release manga there, they tend to do like weekly or monthly thick books of different installments, like it's the next chapter of One Piece, the next chapter of this thing, that and the other, all in this one edition, one monthly or weekly book. And so there's a whole variety of stuff, and you just sometimes after like the really dark heavy stuff, like maybe a horror or manga or something like that, they'll have something cute and fluffy, and they call it, it's the healing manga, to just kind of bring you back and kind of pat you on the head, say, yeah, it's okay, not everything's horrible. And I kind of feel like that's kind of what EarthBound is it's a healing game. It's there to just kind of say, no, games are okay, games can be fun, games can be silly, it's not everything is the end of the world after Kefka destroyed everything. So that's kind of where I think about this, where this game falls, is it's to bring you back to the happier times.
And I certainly agree, because I mean this is a game that you do not play, as I've already mentioned, if you're looking for serious epic game story stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
You play this game because you want to chuckle. It's lighthearted. You want a game that trolls you, and you fight things like the terrible oak or whatever.
Yep.
And its legacy. I mean, obviously it continues on. It's popular enough that here we are talking about it 20 years after its release.
Yeah, and like I said, the minute I saw you were going to be talking about this game, I was all for it.
Well, also I know because you are the biggest Nintendo fanboy I know.
Yeah. I still don't know if that's a compliment or an insult.
No. I mean, we both have been playing Nintendo games since we were kids. So
Yeah.
And, this is just something that is very, very uniquely Nintendo. You don't find too many games of this caliber on other consoles.
Yeah. And
they take themselves far too seriously most of the time.
Yeah, it is meant to be, laugh at ourselves. And that's why I still like Nintendo overall, is they still know how to have, at its core, fun and be silly and be goofy. I mean, you mentioned Smash Brothers as what introduced a lot of people to EarthBound. What was like the first commercial in the U.S. for the original Smash Brothers? It was a bunch of people in mascot costumes beating each other up as "Happy Together" plays in the background. That is Nintendo's bread and butter, is just, hey, sure, we can make dark games and stuff like that. We could also just be completely goofy and have fun, and at the end of the day, our fans will still enjoy that.
And obviously they still do, because Ness is going to be in the next Smash Brothers game, and with EarthBound now out on the Wii U Virtual Console, that's specific. It's not on the original Wii Virtual Console. It's the Wii U Virtual Console. The two are different.
Oh, of course.
Well,
But
I mean, the Wii U is an HD console. The Wii is not. So
yeah, but I think also part of it too is, everyone's always like, oh, you haven't played the real classic games or whatever, or the games everyone needs to play before they die or whatnot. But I think there's enough curiosity with EarthBound for people that come in from the Smash Brothers era to say, what is this game? And if you're willing to just take that step and try it out, and especially now, you are rewarded for it, because you're like, oh, this game is fun, this game is silly, this game is laughing at how ridiculous games can get and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of why it's hung around, is because it never stops being a parody and satire of like kind of the SNES era RPG. So whereas sometimes you make like a cultural reference like in a movie, and it's like, oh, that movie nobody really thinks about anymore. Now it's but we still think about classic video games and things like that, and it has its home because it's making fun of its own style.
yes, it does, and it does. It's self-deprecating humor, and it's something that does not come up a whole lot in RPGs then and even now. Really, most RPGs, I mean, that make fun of themselves on occasion are typically Nintendo titles. I mean, Paper Mario does that. Paper Mario.
Oh yeah.
Paper Mario definitely breaks the fourth wall and trolls itself. And as I mentioned, I think this game would do very well if it was made now as an indie title. There's a lot of great things going on in the indie scene with RPGs. I mentioned on this podcast, when we went to PAX, there's a game that's being, it's called Dragonfin Soup, that is being made, which stars Little Red Riding Hood as a gun-toting raging alcoholic. So it's that's where people are getting creative, and we rag on Nintendo and we rag on Sony and Microsoft as well, but Nintendo has always shown that they're not afraid to get experimental and creative, sometimes to their detriment, and sometimes, though, to their benefit. And this game, I will continue to play on. So
yeah, and that's. Well, I'm glad you're going to keep up with it, because I think I want to circle back with you once you do finish it and hear more of your thoughts, because I spoiled a couple things here and there, but I did try and keep a couple of things secret, because I want to see you have that genuine first reaction of, oh, they did
they did what?
Yeah, they did. Wait, what?
What the fuck did you do, Nintendo? With how weird this game is, I fully expect that at some point in the game, even though it wasn't popular at all, I fully expect it.
That's the cameraman, basically. Because, like I said, by the end you do start to get sick of him.
Suddenly, I expect to see Trollface as a boss or something.
I know I have so many other things I want to say, but I'm just blanking out at the moment. But to our listeners, this is definitely a game that, if you have a Wii U, or if you can track down a physical copy of it to plug into your old Super Nintendo that should not be collecting dust, do so, because this game, it will reward you for it, and you'll be glad you do play it.
Yeah, provided you find a copy of the game that the battery still works.
Hey, they sell those battery repair kits on eBay, on Amazon now. So just get one of those and find someone who knows how to use a soldering iron really well.
Yeah, I saw those and I'm just like, I don't trust myself with a soldering iron. Thank you very much.
Yeah, find someone who uses one for their living.
I'm clumsy. I'll solder my finger or something. And
well, I know I was attached to the game emotionally. Now I'm physically attached to it.
One thing we haven't actually mentioned talking about the game is, some of the unique abilities that the characters have, like the whole PK everything.
Yep.
There's PK and PSI. And if I remember correctly, the PSI is basically your support magic, and your PK is your offensive magic.
I think that's Japanese only. I think in the American version, at least, everything is PSI.
Okay. Because I remember in Super Smash Bros., you have Ness's, PK Fire and.
Yeah. And the teleport power that when you finally get is so useful, and you just run really fast. So you have to have enough room to build up speed. And I one of the things that I didn't realize, it took me a while to realize the first time I played it as a kid, was all the broken items were actually useful. It's like broken blank. You give that to Jeff and you stay at a hotel, and if his IQ level is high enough, he can repair things and it becomes useful items. Which I always thought that was kind of a neat little thing, is you have no idea what this thing's going to be until it's repaired. It might be something you use, and it might not be. You have to wait and find out until it's fixed.
Oh, yes. So.
Yeah. Oh, and if we're talking about crazy items, there's the pencil eraser, which erases pencil-shaped statues. And
yes,
how
the
later,
pencil eraser.
the best is later on you get the eraser, which is the thing that destroys eraser-shaped statues.
You have the disintegration gun and then the reintegration gun.
Yep. And of course, in Winters you have instead of Nessie from Loch Ness, you have Tessie, which which cracks me up to no end because as a Boston Red Sox fan,
yeah, you expect now the Dropkick Murphys to get into the game.
Which yeah. And of course, we're the fun names. You start in One It, then you go to Tucson, Threed, Forsyth.
And it took me the longest time to realize, and I don't know if this was intentional, but our friend and roommate John, who would always be, when I was there going to school at MCLA, would always be shouting Threed, and I'm like, oh, I see. It makes sense now. A decade later.
I think he was referencing something else, like something that happened 3 times. But that was immediate. My mind always went to EarthBound first, and I think I had to explain it to him. And then, of course, he kept doing it.
Yep. And then we all did it.
Oh, that floor.
Yes. The halls of B5.
But
yes, I am definitely going to continue with this game. I'm not done with it by a long shot. The Steam Summer Sale happened.
Oh.
And
boy.
I was good. I only got a few games because it helps when you're broke. It helps when you're broke, and then you're looking at how the deep discounts on the Steam sale, and you're going, I know that game is down to $3, but it's still not low enough.
Yeah. Though one thing I wanted to toss out there talking about this game is, we've been going on and on about how this game is silly and everything like that, but how many games do you really remember before that came out, before this, that were intentionally this silly this often? Because I really can't think of anything before this that really kind of made me laugh out loud at some of the dialogue or the situations or things like that. But I know there have definitely been plenty of games after it. I mean, I think of the Lego video games now, and how those are once in that same vein of we are laughing at ourselves. The Lego Star Wars games are making fun of Star Wars, but it's because they love them as much as anybody else, and things like that. So,
what about? And yeah, I mean now humor and that sort of style has kind of made it into more of the game. Like Conker's Bad Fur Day comes to mind for some strange reason.
Oh dear.
Although that game borders more on the vulgar than
silly, yeah. But there's, like I said, I can't think of really anything that came before this that, like I said, was really aiming to be absolutely goofy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't happen too often. I mean, not so much then, and more so now, but still, not a lot.
Yeah, I really need to go through, look at my shelf of video games, which is unfortunately in a different room, and look at okay, what games do I know that I've had that are really genuinely funny games? And I know I have for the Wii, because I got it for $5, Mad World, which has a lot of funny commentator and stuff, but at the same time that's really kind of black humor or dark humor rather, and I don't know of any other ones. I know there's got to be stuff, but it's still an area of games that we're only starting now to really dig into, and it's a shame because I want to see more games that make me laugh out loud while I'm playing them.
Yeah. So now that we're winding down here, along that vein, Captain N over here. So 20 years later, how does it hold up?
Oh, I still love it. Like I just when you announced it, the first thing I did was run downstairs. I responded saying I'm in, and I basically ran into my living room, went into the shelf that has all of my Super Nintendo games, picked it aside, plugged it in, started playing, and I went again all the way through just to kind of refresh my memory, and I'm just like, I remember why I love this game because it just makes me laugh so much.
So 20 years later, you still play it.
Yep.
You've beaten the game countless times.
Yep.
And
it's that the Super Nintendo era of games I can pick up and play just about any time and go all the way through. Like not just I'll play a little bit. No, I'll go all the way through. So it's in that right vein, and it's definitely one towards the top in my list of games for that category.
Excellent. So for you, that is we all have lists like that. We all have games that we can just sit down and play whenever, even though we've beaten them a bajillion times. I know for me, it's some of the early Sonic games have that same sort of feel. RPGs for me particularly don't make that list too often because a lot of times for me they are a good chunk of time investment, and with my school schedule it's like I want to just pick you up and just blaze through you, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But EarthBound, it's still a huge following. Nintendo is aware of it, so you get pieces of it, you get references to it in things like Smash Brothers and things, and so Nintendo's taken good care of most of these characters.
Yeah, and I think it's enough to keep it, keep making the references and keep it around, because the fact that there is people trying that they put it out on Virtual Console says that there are people that are trying to access it, and I always have that fear that one of these days there's going to be that game that I always wanted to play, or I haven't played in a while and I just can't go back to because whatever, my system can't handle it or anything, and that's kind of why I hold on to all my consoles for grim death, is so I still have a way to play all these games. So the fact that they're trying, aware that they need to make it accessible is a good thing.
Absolutely. So, and I'm sure that you're going to keep playing it until the cartridge don't move anymore.
Yeah, I'm already
and when it dies, you'll probably plunk down the exorbitant amount of money and get one. Or if you get a Wii U, you'll get it on the Virtual Console.
No, I'll probably be doing that anyway. Wii U's next on the list, unfortunately. I'm running out of connect. I already have all my RCA cables on a splitter, and I think of my HDMI cables are going to start needing to be on that soon for my TV, unfortunately. But, oh well. People need to stop making things that are good.
Oh yes, anything but that. So, well done to Nintendo and well done EarthBound, and so I think we've run through here. I mean,
Yeah.
we've spent a bit more than an hour talking about a single game, which is pretty impressive. So, if you have memories of Earthbound, or you have any questions, comments on this episode or any other episode of downloadable content, you can get in touch with us a variety of ways. Facebook.com/DLContent, at Twitter at DLContent, on Tumblr, DLCpodcast.tumblr.com. You can email us at DLContent1@gmail.com, and as always, all episodes can be found on iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher, so those are all the plugs we have. So, it remains for me to thank Doug, aka Captain N, for being on this this other Nintendo nostalgia episode with me.
Zoom, ding ding.
And so, I am Brian. Have a good one, everybody, and remember, Fuzzy Pickles.